Welcome back. This is part 2 of the Rhythm Gauntlet worksheet. We did 1 through 3 on part 1. We're going to work on 4 through 6. You need the recordings and the worksheet. So remember that we're in the modules on Music 121. If you're in the current term, I guess, it could be somewhere else in the future. So you need the dictations and things are all in that right there. Download the worksheet. We've done 1 through 3. We're going to work on number 4 right now. Just have a listen.
The sea is coming through the floor.
Okay, so
Oceans in the hall.
sure hope YouTube doesn't ban us for this, but we'll see. Worst case scenario, I'll repost these here. Hopefully it just says that monetization would go to the artists and there's no blocks. That's how YouTube works. We'll make sure that it's available to you. So I'm gonna go out of the share screen here and you can see the worksheet, and you will have to listen to this a bunch of times where it goes 1, 2, 3. The sea is coming through the floor. Oceans in the hall have become the port. Okay, and we're not doing pitch right here. We are learning how to map larger rhythms, right? Or larger excerpts for the rhythms, because once you have that down, you can work on notes. But if you can't figure out the shape of it or the rhythm, that's a problem. It says 4/4 time. We have to write 4/4, right? It says they're all like this except the 1 and 3, 3 at the end, 3/4 at the end. And it says begins with an eighth note pickup, and a pickup measure is an incomplete measure. It doesn't have all the stuff coming up. You just do the last note or notes that go into the beginning, right? So the thing we need to do is we need to listen a bunch of times and then mark not every beat, but which of these lyrics are on beats, right? Then we can go back and say, well, are there any extra beats? But we're trying to keep the task simple, okay? So we want to know if any of these are on beats. You can tap along and mark along if it's not too complicated or fast. You could slow them down, of course. Best thing to do, of course, is to listen to this a bunch of times. We won't do that on this particular video. You can stop and listen a bunch of times, okay? Obviously, I've heard these a bunch of times. So here we go. Ready? 2, 3, 4.
Is coming through the floor. Oceans in the hall have become the port.
All right. So, there are lots of beats in between, but we can go, the sea is coming through the floor. Oceans in the hall have become the port. So you can see that we can tell which of these notes are on the beats. This may take you a little longer than it does in the video here. Remember, this is a how-to, but there's work to be done in between. I made the worksheet, so I mean, years and years ago, I made these actually, but I'm aware of what it is. Plus, I've just been doing this a long time, so it goes quicker for me. You have to develop the skill. It's not just about getting the right answers. Okay, change to a sharper pencil. So you go, the sea is coming through the floor. So we could do this to begin with, but let's pretend that's tricky and you're working on your own and it's a problem, right? Let's leave it alone for right now. Because we have mapped a lot of this, we can do easy things like coming through the floor. We know that there's coming, 2 things in a beat, and we can just do that right there, right? Through the floor. Well, there's something funky going on there, so we'll leave it alone, right? Oceans in, so there's another 2, right? That happens just before the next beat. Here is similar to there, in the hall. So we're going to leave that alone, right? Have become the port. So we were able to find, depends on what you want to think. This is B. Right, I'll put it underneath. Pairs of eighth notes in a beat. But now we have more information. We know that there's a lot of beats here. We know that there's a beat in here somewhere. There's a beat in there somewhere. There's lots of beats there. There's a beat in there somewhere, right? So let's just try this again. If you're unfamiliar with this, you can't sing this in your head now. The C is coming through the floor, or say it in time. You should go back and listen a bunch. There's no getting around that step. You should get acquainted with the sounds, right? But if we go, the C is coming through the floor. We can do this if we can tap through the floor, right? Through the floor. All right, so what does that mean? Well, I can hear that there's a beat right there, right? Through the floor. Now we can do this, right? We can put a quarter note right here because there's one beat, one thing happening in this beat. Here's the tricky part. How many things are going on here? How many things in this beat? You might be tempted to just say one, but that's not right, okay? Because there's through carrying through it and the. If you listen to them sing, maybe I'll just play that much again for you so you can hear it.
The sea is coming through the floor.
Okay, so they sing all the way through to the, which means in this beat right here, there's a the and there's the ooh, right? So there's two things going on, right? Now, this is the value and beauty of just looking at surgically at one beat at a time. We don't have to worry about how long this is right now. We know that this beat right here has the ooh and the, right? But because this is a continuation of that sound, we'll just tie them together like that, right? Now, because music has patterns, we can do that in many places. Oceans in the hall, right? So there's another beat right there, which means that in is one beat, one note, and then in continues on through here. So this beat here has a n and the, two things, right? This is the n and the right there, and we just tie it together because it's one sound, right? Have become the port. So again, there's our beat right there in between. The rest of from become is the first eighth note, and there, right? Now, if we hadn't been looking at it globally like this, you'd be like, well, how long is this? I think it's a dotted quarter note, but then it can get very confusing afterwards, right? All right, I think it's time now to go back and figure out this. We're not going to try and figure out how long the note is. We're going to try and figure out how many beats go by until we get to come. We know that coming is the beginning of a beat and is not. So there's not going to be a beat here. The beat is either going to be here or there, but not there because we figured out it wasn't to begin with. And I'll play it one more time, although we should be able to just sing this and count it, but heck, let's just do it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'm not even worrying about meter right now. I go the C, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Is coming. This is the sixth beat right there, right? After the C. Listen again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this is the sixth beat, which means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it came before is. The sea is coming, right? Now we know that. Let's figure this out. We can actually now listen to how many beats that is, okay? I hear 3 beats, right? It's like a long half note or a dotted half note. We're 1, 2 off. Maybe it's right at 3, right? C, 2. Yeah, they're off by 3, right? I'm not going to overcomplicate it and say they sang into 3 or, you know, like a little bit. I'm just going to say that's a half note. The C. Now, since I know that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 beats right here, right? So, and I've got 2 taken up, I just have to fill in the rest of the measure like that. 5th beat right here, well, is this right here. How many things are in this beat? It's not just is, it's not just one. There is some more rest, and then is, we know is on the second half of this beat here. So we have 2 things in this, not just one. We have the rest, which is an 8th note because it's 2 8th notes, right? And then we have that right there. See how this is not beamed into here? Because this is a beat and that's a beat. And the beaming of this tells us that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And I suspect that now we're going to find that this is a long note. And since this is not a pickup like this might be on beat 1, we'll count floor, right? If you have it memorized, you can sing through it without this, but we'll just do it. 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Ah, so we have 5 beats. Floor 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's the same as this, except that there's no pickup is. Like there's a pickup here, the sea is come. But oceans, it doesn't have like the oceans, and it's just on the beat, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have a 5th beat, which means that that's going to be one measure, and then we have a beat like that. Now let's listen and see again how many beats floor is. If I'd be surprised if it's different than C, but we'll give it a listen.
It's coming through the
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, great! It's 3 beats dotted, right? You might go back and reevaluate that so that they're the same. Whether they would call this a half note and half rest, or you went dotted and quarter, so it's kind of the same. They probably meant it to be the same because it's the same gesture, but their performance is different. That means that probably here, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to pre-guess that this is going to be like that. And there, like that, right? Because it's the same gesture each time. They're singing in rhythmic patterns that are the same. The chords change, the lyrics change, the notes slightly change, but a unifying idea is the phrases are the same. So you can sort of copy, right?
oceans in the hall.
2, 3, 4, 1. Yeah, it's a dotted half note, 4 beats, and then again right there, like that. If we want, we could listen to the very beginning and see if we can't justify making this be a dotted. It depends on what you're writing for. If you want it to be for sheet music, then you'd probably make them all the same. If you're doing an actual note for note transcription to see what the artist has done, then we could be as precise if it's different as that, right? 2, 3, 4. It's enough. It's enough. I'm just going to go back and call it dotted because the other, it's close enough, and these other ones are definitely dotted. There you go, like that. Okay. All right, the next one. It's very short. Okay, it's fast, and sometimes we can get intimidated by that, but it's the same process. Listen a few times. Okay. Well, she used to have a carefree mind of her own. Try that with there once, right? Tap the beat. All right, so your job is to figure out where those are. I'm going to suggest you pause the video and figure it out on your own and see how you do. You want to listen to it, you want to tap the beat, you want to sing along. Well, she used to have a carefree mind of her own. And then you want to mark you want to mark not where the beats are, but which lyrics have beats or are on the beat. And then we'll figure out the other beats if there are any anywhere else. I'll get this started by saying we're in 4/4 time, and this is beat 4 right there. So you could write in a bunch of stuff, but odds are if this is 4, right, that's going to be on a beat because it starts on beat 4, right? So we could mark the first one there. And that means somewhere around here, depending on how long that is, we're going to put a bar line and start over again. All right, try it on your own. And through the magic technology, you could have gone away into a time pocket and come back. So, well, she used to have a carefree mind of her own. That's it right there, right? Well, she used to have a carefree mind of her own. And now this is really as easy as like mutilated lips, or even easier because it's short, right? 2 things in a beat. Right there. Right. Bring that back. Which means that this is my beat 4 right there, which means now I'm on 1. Starts on beat 4, 4 and, right? 2 things in a beat, right? 2 things in a beat. Care is 1 thing in a beat, right? Free is 1 thing in a beat. 1, 2, 3, 4 beats, right? Mind, 1 thing. Of her, 2 things, right? Oh, now I'm just going to leave it as an incomplete measure because I know that there's more lyrics that happen there, but we don't care. We don't have more information. If this was an excerpt where you have a pickup, you almost always leave the last measure incomplete anyways to account for that beat right there. Okay, listen one more time, and hopefully you did really well on that, right? Okay, and there you go. Now the last one is famous song by the Beatles. That's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. It's the verse, and has it's in 3/4 time, and it has it does have a tie in it. So you know you'll have to do this. I guess the other ones had ties in them too, but you know, point ourselves in that direction. Let's listen. If anything's going to get us flagged, this one is. So I'm going to talk over top of it. Okay, so yourself in a boat on a river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. All right, so YouTube will certainly look for that with an algorithm, and so might get this one flagged because they might block it. We'll see. But I will sing it a few times for you, and you can stop and listen to the recording on your own. Hopefully me singing over top made it seem different enough that for a short excerpt like that, they don't care. They have a 6 or 10 second rule or something. So picture yourself in a boat on a river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. I think we need to listen a few to make sure that I'm not making up these rhythms here, but we're actually doing what's on the recording. We'll risk it one more time. We're going to pay attention to if I get the rhythms right here and we can repeat them. You, of course, can play it back as many times as you want in Canvas and memorize it. Picture yourself in a boat on a river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that these were on the beats, and they are, because you could go like tangerine trees and you could make up a rhythm there, but it's with tangerine trees, so it's on a beat, and marmalade skies. Start looking for these details of where, especially at the end of phrases or ends of syncopations and things like that, we kind of just go like, I think I know what that's like, but we don't. Okay, so picture yourself in a boat on a river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. So there's funky stuff going on with river, tangerine, and malade, right? There's some extra beats that we're not able to account for, but all the other ones are nicely on beats. Picture yourself in a boat on a river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. Okay. All right. 4 times. Starts on beat 1. We're just gonna rip through a bunch of these really quickly. And again, you may need to listen to this a bunch of times, right? You should stop and do that, but, or have done that. Picture your bar line, 3 beats. Self in a bar line, 3 beats, right? Boat on a bar line, 3 beats. River, well, let's leave that right now, right? With 10, don't know about that. Trees, not sure. And because we know that there's beats there. And marma, well, we're not sure about that one either. Okay, so we got some easy ones at the beginning. Let's have you stop and listen to this a few times. I'm not going to. I want to bring this video to a close. It's starting to go long because we don't need to risk YouTube algorithms, but it goes, picture yourself in a boat on a river with river with river with river with river with. So can you hear that the beat comes right after ver, right? And the next beat is with. So there's just one more beat in here. Now, that makes sense from a bunch of different reasons. One, we can measure it, but if you think of tangerine, right? This is your downbeat, and mar with and probably not on beat 1s because they're pickups or ancillary. They're not the accented note. They bring you to the accented notes. So picture yourself in a boat on a river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. You can hear the emphasis on each beat 1 of the groups, right? So if there's only one here between, let's take a look at this. We have 2 things in the beat. Don't worry about how long that is right now. Just write my 2 things. Now, you got to ask yourself, does he sing all the way through to with, or does he just sing part of the way through? I guess it's worth risking one more listen to that. Okay, and then we'll use that as a basis for everything else, right? What's the duration of this? Is there space? All right, takes a breath there. So we know that there are 2 things in here. There's the rest of bleeding out into there, right? And then a breath. 2 things, the and the breath is 2 8th notes. So the first one will be a genuine 8th note, and the next one will be that, right? If you wanted to keep it really simple for like kids to play or something, you could have just made it a quarter note and say, take a breath there. That would have been another way to do it. Okay, with tan. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, tangerine trees. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. You might say, but wait, how do you know? I don't for a fact, but I'm going to presume that it's real similar. Tangerine trees, and so trees, and so I'm going to guess that he takes a breath there. So I'm going to, like, here we go, 1, 2, 3, tangerine, and then it's going to come down. Trees is actually on this side right there of the beat. 1, 2, 3, trees. I'm going to think he's going to take a breath there. So I'm going to not make a half note. You could, right? Just half note with a breath mark, but maybe I'm just going to call it a dotted quarter note instead and give him an 8th rest. And marmalade, marmalade. Again, 2 things inside the beat, tied over to another 8th note, right? Because my beat's going to be right there, and like that. Marmalade skies, and I'll give that probably a dotted half right there. You're going, but you didn't measure, but I'm comparing, right? And I think they're all the same. And now I'll check. I know that the timing is the same. So there's going to be like a beat after een, just like there was after river and after aid, right? I'm just going to check and see if he breathes in all these places. Otherwise, I have to turn this into a half note, turn that into a quarter note. But I think he breathes in all these places. Let's back up a little bit. Breath. Ooh, no breath. I was wrong, but that's okay, right? Like he does breathe right here, but you wanna not get paralyzed sometimes. Like I went through some assumptions, but then you can check them. And that's a good way to do dictation as well. But you're admitting mistakes. No, I'm admitting process, right? You got to make some mistakes to figure stuff out. You got to volunteer some things and then measure. All right, because he sings through tangerine trees and marmalade skies, right? Mark where the beats are, not where all the beats are. Sorry, mark which lyrics are on beats. Start to do the easy ones. Make sure you're in tune with your meter and you're thinking about beat patterns. Check against accents. Picture yourself in a boat. Those are emphasis, so they're probably beat ones. And then, go in and anywhere that's funky, you can say, well, how many beats are actually there? Like in the C, we had to count all these beats and then we had to listen, right? You have to think about meter. Hopefully that was useful. And hopefully your rhythm dictation is not only getting better, but starting to develop a methodology for more complex things. We will do one more complex 16th note dictation before the term is done. And I'll show you how it's exactly the same, although it's not going to be responsible for curriculum to be tested on because it'll be more complex rhythms, but the method is still the same. All right, good on you for all that work. And I guess we'll see you Monday for theory and Tuesday for more ear training.